Elevate have extended their lead, while Knights have unfortunately diminished theirs. Their chances now lie on the last 2 games and a lot of math to go with it, I'll tell you that much. Joining me now on the desk, it's Xenox and it's Guz. Xenox, what would you like to say? I know you had something you wanted to say in the break. They were bullying you. I'll allow you to say it now.
Oh, look, I appreciate it.
Hey, Guz, I just wanted to wonder, how was your day? Sorry, Xenox, sorry.
Come on,
It's been really good.
Bit of professionalism here for the broadcast. Look, I just wanted to sort of bring up a little bit of a fun fact for a game that's going to be happening later on with the Chiefs. With the Knights losing, the Chiefs can still make the major now. Had the Knights actually won their game, the Chiefs would not have been able to mathematically make top 2.
What's the chance? What's the chance?
Wait, what?
Don't tell me the odds. Obviously, it's still going to be quite low, but you know, they can do it.
0.0
0 point something. Yeah, they have to win all their
Yeah.
games, and other games still have to go their way.
That was the most useless fact ever.
It's
I know. I kind of hoped there was going to be something to that. There was no substance whatsoever, just like that last game from the Knights. There was nothing there.
That's
the
true.
Knights. Disappointing. Well, let's move on to a game where I'm sure there will be plenty of substance. Gladiators, hungry as ever. But are they hungry like the Wolf? That's the big question here. Wolves really making an impact in Stage 1. But Stage 2, guys, it's been a bit, how you going?
Yeah, battle for the top 4 this game, as both teams currently sitting 4th and 5th respectively. 7 points heading into this Playday. And I can only assume that a win here keeps you in reach of the major, and a loss would make it very, very difficult towards the tail end to recover. Honing in though here on GAIMIN Gladiators, who, again, much like Fury, have seen improvement heading into the second stage, and now it's all about trying to crack in towards the top 4 and then trying to make that run into the top 2 later on in the stage.
I gotta say, I'm a big fan of their logo. I haven't really looked at it like enough, but that's actually...
So you're a fan of it,
nice.
but you haven't looked into it.
No, I looked into it then. The logo looks beautiful. Xenox, what do you make of this roster? They've made some waves since joining APAC.
Yeah, they certainly have, and I think Guz, you know, sort of comparing them to Fury is probably the apt approach. On the same kind of level, you know, pretty similar sort of round differentials as well. Obviously now also 2 wins apiece, so you know, I think that's pretty much a fair comparison. And realistically, when you actually look at the entire standings now, everyone is pretty close. So for GAIMIN Gladiators, for Fury, for Wildcard even, you know, anyone can sort of beat anyone, and this is probably the approach for GAIMIN Gladiators, is they can beat anyone. You know, they've taken down the Chiefs, they took down Fury, which is obviously a reinvigorated Fury, and they obviously contested really well against IG back in Playday 2, that going to overtime. So really the only blip, and not even much of a blip, was the 7-4 loss to Elevate back in Playday 4 last week. So really, besides that being their worst result, is quite pretty good for the stage as a whole. So coming into this game against Direwolves, it's a danger game for the Direwolves.
It certainly is, and let's start talking about this roster. Direwolves have been mightily impressive in Stage 1. International performance, I think you'll probably push that to the side and just say that, you know, lack of experience, lack of being in that position before. But coming into Stage 2, we expected them to absolutely blow us out of the water. Now, not to say that they haven't. They have technically won 3 of their 4 games so far, Guz, but 2 of them have been in overtime, so they've actually dropped 2 points already. They should technically be second at the moment. Do you think that their performance has been up to par for Stage 2?
Well, I mean, when you ask that question, it's such a difficult one to give an answer on, because the first stage was such a high standard. It was a flawless first stage for the Direwolves, so to expect them to ever do that again is actually pretty unrealistic, because that is such a tough achievement for any team to secure. So I think heading into the second stage, they've been okay. Yeah. I think that some of their results have potentially been marred by the fact that they did have a couple of players going through illness. I think especially for that second Playday where they lost to Wildcard. So if we take that into consideration, I don't think Direwolves have fallen off dramatically, but I do think they need to still find probably that next gear for top 2 to stay within reach. And I think this match against GAIMIN Gladiators is a good opportunity for them to prove that they're back to their best.
Well, that's actually a really good point. I've never really thought about how sickness would affect them, especially when you look at their results from Stage 1. Let's have a look at the vetoes as we do dissect illness from sickness, you know what I mean? Because you're the illest in the game. Xenox.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I don't know what you're going on about.
You know what? I am sick of this. Bit of professionalism from you two. Wouldn't be too far to ask, would it? But Skyscraper is where we go, Xenox. How are you feeling?
I think for both teams, they'll feel confident and honestly comfortable as well. There was a recent win for GAIMIN GLADIATORS was on SKYSCRAPER against Fury in APAC South, and also for Direwolves too. They took down the Chiefs on SKYSCRAPER too, but that was an 8-7, and what actually felt like a bit of a last hurrah effort for the Chiefs, which now, lo and behold, of course, you know, they could still have one more last hurrah tonight. But, you know, the kind of map that we've seen sort of bob up a little bit in APAC South over the, obviously basically since coming into the map pool, and I still feel like defenders have that very slight advantage, but you know the numbers do say it's really 50-50, and I always love maps that are 50-50 because it really does bring out the best teams, and rather than the teams that maybe sort of rely on those sort of map advantages.
Oh, I like that. Xenox, sometimes you give some interesting comments, I'll say that. But we do look at this, guys, it's split. Do you think that, would it be fair to say whatever team kind of leads the first half, that this should be theirs, or do you not see the stats as 50-50?
I don't know. Having a lead at the half can sometimes not mean all too much in the grand scheme of a match. I think a lot of that is going to be dictated by the way in which the bans play out, because SKYSCRAPER can actually shift quite dramatically depending on, for example, if you have a couple hard breaches out or a Thatcher, or depending on the defense, etc. So it's very difficult to get a read as to that storyline, but I think the main takeaway is the fact that Gladiators played Fury 7-5 recently. Direwolves also played against the Chiefs 8-7 on the same map recently. So there's a lot of information available for both of these teams. If they've gone to the effort of watching that VOD, expecting this map, I think that's going to dramatically sort of change how these teams approach the map as a whole.
Well, 3 points up for grabs for both of these teams. A Berlin spot is beckoning. And to run you through all of the action, it's Devin Mandy.
Thank you very much, Rob. This is a game that sets the tone for the rest of the stage. Both teams do have a shot, albeit a slim one, at making the major, and this game may dictate where they will sit coming into Playday 6 and Playday 7, where we will finally hand out or steal away those slots at the global final. Mandy, this is no doubt going to be a tight one. Both teams have been showing up greatly.
For sure, and SKYSCRAPER's really grown on me, Dev. Every time I see this map pop up now, I don't feel the dread of, oh no, I have no idea what's going on, but just excitement, because every time it comes up, every team brings something new to it. It's always exciting. We saw Gladiators dominate on this map. They did such a great job dissecting it, and I just can't wait to get into it.
SKYSCRAPER will be our battlefield. It's one of my favorite maps in the pool these days as well. Like you said, we saw GAIMIN GLADIATORS play it against Fury. That was a nice tight game. Gladiators got the better of their opponents. Direwolves likewise beat Chiefs on this map, albeit a very close 8-7 win. Let's dive though into the operator veto, and Maverick is the first operator to go.
Maverick being taken off the board does mean that clearing some of those anti-hard breach charges will be a little more difficult. Hopefully Thatcher will be left in, because otherwise the Gladiators will find themselves in a world of pain trying to get some of those external walls open. Thankfully it is, as Ying is the next one to get banned out.
Now, Ying is also what GAIMIN GLADIATORS banned against Fury. Will they ban the Azami? No, they will in fact leave it in. So that's a bit of a distinction already, a diversion from what we saw them play against Fury.
Valkyrie to be taken out as well on the side of the defense. Some of those pesky cameras can be pretty tricky to find, especially because so much of the map is sort of the same color as her black eyes as well. I can imagine that taking that out will be pretty helpful on the side of the attack. And then Kaid to follow, which is a curious ban for me. Although Thatcher is still in, they will be taking out the Kaid anyway, maybe trying to prevent tricking, although the bandit is still in. I'm pretty curious about that ban, to be honest.
Well, as it stands right now, both of these teams are on the outside of major spots. Direwolves in 4th position, GAIMIN GLADIATORS in 5th position. Both teams vying for the top 2 that will get them into the major. Of course, they're actually only trailing behind the next team up above them, the Knights, by 1 single point. You've got 3 teams right now, IG, Direwolves and Gladiators, all tied on 7 points, which means that this upper mid-pack battle for the top spots, the only 2 spots that APAC South will get at the major, is very tightly contested. And as we only have 2 more playdays left after today, this game means everything to these teams.
And for sure, the stories are so different between them as well for the Gladiators. This is their rise to fame, right? Whereas for the Direwolves, they need to prove to us that they can repeat the form that they've always had, that they can show that the way that they play is consistent even at an international stage. And I think it really reflects in the server as well. The Direwolves, they've been consistent throughout the stage as well. They've been picking up wins, although not as dominant as the previous stage. But for the Gladiators, they've been able to pick up some rounds and upsets against some teams that we never could have expected before. And so coming into this matchup, it's so tightly contested. Different stories, but just as close to going to the Berlin Major.
Yeah, you could see either of these teams attend the event. For Gladiators, it would be their first ever international event, only 6 months after they promoted into the Tier 1 of Rainbow Six. For Dials, it would be a back-to-back major appearance for them. Just digging into round 1, it looks like Dials have actually completely forfeited this run.
And the Direwolves actually playing quite a conservative anchor hold as well. There's no shield placed out in Shrine Dev. It's instead just sitting there on the bomb chassis, leaving this top mezzanine completely bare. It seems like they're deciding to draw back their defense as the Gladiators make their way through the map. A map sweep seems to be the meta play to go for these attacks. Everyone seems to be doing it, and it feels quite successful on the attacking side as well.
Bomb located by attackers.
Gladiators waste absolutely no time getting in the building, taking that free map control. As the drones come out, no doubt they're soon to see the stack of utility the Direwolves have waiting for them. And of course, Harambe, who is the first line of defense, is playing with some utility to protect him. And of course, his gas babes. He's got ADSs, he's got magnets, you've got Jackie Wu here in drum as well to support with a shield to boot.
The smoke canisters actually being dedicated to delaying the mid-round instead of denying the plant hit instead is a really interesting approach from the Direwolves. I don't think we've seen anything like it. And Harambe even making use of the architecture of that mezzanine. He's even using the little tiny balcony sections that go off it as cover rather than using the shields like we normally see. Now the onslaught of the attack starts to come through drum. Refrags go out, but eventually the Direwolves win out 2 picks in their half.
In fact, it's a third as well, as Harambe decides to fall off. Hoven might have taken this ground, but he has lost 3 teammates for it, and he is not quite out of hot water yet. Hoven just dancing around the drum, but in a vulnerable position. Souffle sees him, a little spray, and now Hoven is all alone. In a 1 versus 5, this is a very dominating start from the ever so experienced team that the Direwolves are. Hoven getting met with a bit of a reality check now as he wonders, look, I've got 40 seconds, but I've got no teammates to work with. This feels like a round over.
And I just absolutely love the way that the Direwolves play that defense. We don't see anything like that. Hoven now taking the duel with Souffle, but Souffle deciding not to give away his life and fall off. The Direwolves so disciplined, not giving away any of these 1 versus 1s, and it even plays into the nature of this defense. So conservative, putting all the utilities stacked together in drum. Finally, Jackie Wu can clean up the final kill into Hoven and eventually win out the round depth.
An extremely strong start for Direwolves, and it puts them in a confident position. I think a lot of people would expect defense to be strong, perhaps not necessarily that strong, but Gladiators, it was like waves crashing against a cliff. They really had no impact trying to break into that strong, firm grip that Wolves had on the drum and, well, I guess, balcony area. And it just made it so difficult for Gladiators to get back into the game. Now Direwolves, I mean, the game was kind of set, the stage was set for this to be a tight game, right? And I could absolutely see Gladiators running away with it. Direwolves not quite on top form. Gladiators coming off of surprising us and impressing us. But I feel like that first round has really set the tone for Direwolves to be the favored team here and for Gladiators to be fighting against the grain.
Absolutely, I completely agree with that. Like, even the way that Direwolves showed up the map, they shaped up the map in their favor is something that we haven't seen before yet coming into this stage. It's something that we haven't really been able to dissect, let alone the Gladiators going into the server and doing it as well. And just by the fact that it was so dominant, that those crossfires worked exactly to plan for the Direwolves, I agree, I think it really sets the tone. And for the Gladiators, maybe it's time to try and change their approach. Easy now will try and go for a C4 spawn peak. That almost actually hits the mark. Imagine if someone had come that way, but the rest of the Gladiators actually shaping up around the other side of the map instead.
A really nice C4, and I feel like that aggression from ED, the willingness to go for a jump out C4, it gives you some insight into the way Wolves are playing this. They are completely unafraid. They intend to assert their dominance. They want to give this message to Gladiators that we are the favored team here and we will not let you in.
Now Joe making his way through the ground floor of the building on the Nook, trying to evade some of those cameras as Rix opens up the geisha wall, trying to create an entry for his teammates to get into the building nice and smooth. Two Direwolves players now contesting out here on the roam, still not finding any engagement as they waste time. Time ticking away now, 2 minutes left on the board for the Gladiators.
Just starting to get this map control. It's a face check. And right around the corner is Harambe, who reads it perfectly. That subtle sound cue gives him the kill. And with that, Direwolves continue to assert their dominance. Souffle in an engagement, but he falls back. You can see the maturity from Direwolves, not to hold on too long, but to get out of dodge.
And that completely plays into the story that we've been giving for Direwolves this stage, right, Dev? I mean, we were saying that they are a mature team. They have that international experience now, and it's completely reflected in the server as well. Souffle, he could have easily gone for the repeat there in Geisha, but instead went, okay, I'm just going to try and slither my way out. I can see Harambe trying to get out, and I'm not going to leave my teammate behind. And getting away with that is something that sets apart Direwolves from all the other teams in this league and shows their maturity. Now Harambe holding on to the next line of defense here, just behind the dragon statue, as the rest of the GAIMIN Gladiators start to formulate around him.
Oh, it's so frustrating now for Tolji to try and flush Harambe from this position. He does eventually lose his life to Ape, and that's a nice way for Gladiators to even up the man count, and in fact they can rip it straight out of Direwolves' hands. Now on a 4 versus 3.
Now 4 versus 3, but time is ticking away. 4 versus 2 will be very difficult for the Direwolves. 4 versus 1, Ape going on an absolute tear of a round as Tolji is able to clean up the round for the GAIMIN Gladiators. A methodical sweep through the map allows them to take these fights one by one. The Direwolves, although they were so disciplined throughout that mid-round, could not close it out in the end as they took the 1 versus 1s.
Indeed, and it goes to show the power of these Gladiators players. A lot of them have been stepping up. They've surprised us. They haven't played Tier 1 Siege before, with the exception of Joe formerly playing for Invictus. And Ape particularly has surprised everyone. He was the #1 rated player in APAC South for several weeks. That he's now dropped to #4. Souffle, actually, from Direwolves, has taken the mantle of the top-rated player in the league. But that doesn't take anything away from the entire Gladiators roster being capable of fragging out and making those entries when it matters.
And this is already shaping up to just be such an exciting match, Deb. I mean, round 1 we saw such discipline, such a unique approach to the bomb site from the Direwolves. In round 2 we saw something a bit more conventional, but we saw incredible teamwork come out on the side of the Gladiators. And I think this is going to be the story and the pace of the entire game. I don't think it's going to stop anytime soon, as the Direwolves now shape up to go down into Kitchen and to Barbecue, bringing the castle this time as well. Castling off one half of the map, we saw one go down on the double doors just in the floor below, going into reception, trying to cut off there we go, half of the ground floor has been cut off by these castle barricades, indicating that the Direwolves, they're trying to slow down the push. They're trying to slow down the push coming from the east side of the map from the Gladiators.
The Gladiators have not been hesitating at all taking map control. They're so quick. They're always on the front foot. Direwolves have a little bit more luck now that they're playing this off bomb site. Curious to not see them go back to exhibition office. They are confident in their tertiary bomb site choice with, like you said, another unique strategy. It feels like Direwolves have spent a lot of time working on their strat book for Skyscraper. They've got this castle extension, which is very similar, remarkably similar, in fact, to their Team Room Karaoke setup. You've got these shields as well on mezzanine, one on drum, enabling some very strong power positions as we see Harambe defending it with his life.
And I think in the last matchup that we casted on Skyscraper as well, Dev, we have seen teams recently favour this particular side of the map, this west side of the map, a lot of teams have actually been going for this kitchen barbecue site instead of going back to exhibition office. I'm still curious as to why, I'll be honest. I haven't fully dissected this half of the map to see why it's just so much better, but it's something that we're starting to see come into fashion the more Skyscraper that we see get played out. Now Souffle will be the first point of contention here in Drum as the Sledgehammer will take down one castle barricade, a nade to try and follow and clear out those shields, but will My Disc will protect Souffle for a little while. Grenade goes through, but doesn't connect.
Joe, once again, the first to fall. He might be the most experienced player on Gladiators, but he's been the opening death time and time again for his team. Direwolves, though, they might have got the opening pick, but they are starting to lose this map control as they peel back. Harambe, though, the last line of defense on this top floor. How many players will he be able to take with him to the grave?
Well, the thing is, they don't need to take that many players, Jeff, because the bomb site isn't even on this floor. So much time has been wasted. There's only 50 seconds and counting down in the round now, and Gaming Gladiators still haven't managed to use that sledgehammer and try and get some vertical pressure. Souffle's still holding on to this choke point through the stairs as well. The Direwolves, they've done their due diligence on their top floor, and they've well and truly won out this map fight engagement.
It's a matter of waiting now. The Gladiators have to push in, and yet they have not done so. 30 seconds. Will they check the corner where Harambe is playing? That's Tolji to find the kill, eliminate the player. And with another follow-up from Harvin, Gladiators have the man advantage back on their side. There's just 15 seconds left on the clock as ED retains some control in Restaurant, but Pika, he will be the player to hold on. Can't deny the diffuser plans! And Tolji steps up once again. It is all onto ED, and he cannot suffice. Gladiators, with the explosive execute, managed to get another attack.
What a crazy attack from the Gladiators as well. I mean, we thought that the round was going to fall apart from them. They didn't have any map control. They had to flood and go for something desperate down into kitchen, falling through the hatch. But the cover that came out as that hatch drop came through, Harambe and Souffle overstaying their welcome in this top floor. Eventually, the Gladiators were able to flood the site with that man advantage and eventually win out the round. And the Direwolves, they show so much discipline and such an incredible approach to this map, such a great macro strategy as well, but they're not executing this right. They're not as disciplined as they are when it comes to the round in the server, in the heat of the moment. They overstay their welcome, and eventually the Gladiators punish them for it.
It goes to show we shouldn't get too ahead of ourselves, because I was definitely counting Gladiators out in that round. I couldn't believe that, like, they knew where all the players were upstairs. They pre-fired all of them, isolated those 1v1s, and Direwolves looked a bit silly by the end of the round. Caught out of position, outnumbered, outgamed,
10 seconds.
and now they're in a position where it's Skyscraper, and they've only won a single round out of 3 defense attempts, which is looking pretty grim. I would expect, yes, albeit Thatcher is in, but I would expect even with these bans to see a little bit more fire on the defensive side, and Direwolves haven't shown that yet.
That being said, these rounds have been very close out. I mean, that last round was a bit scrappy, it was a bit yucky, but I think that's what we come to expect between these two teams, right? They're so closely matched, and both of them have shown some pretty strong prowess and knowledge here on Skyscraper. Now, though, Direwolves, they can go back to their original bomb site that they did get a round win on, so we can be pretty confident that they're trying to retake this win once again. ED now contesting out early on the roam. This is pretty different. Last time we saw Direwolves attack this bomb site, they didn't even attempt to roam whatsoever. ED will fall off early though, as that wall does get open on the side of the Gladiators, and the shield setup still stands here in Drum.
The Gladiators will lap up the map control for free once again. Thorn device almost catches a kill, but doesn't do any damage at the end of it. Redrone now for Gladiators, and they will find this setup very familiar. They struggled against it in round 1. They tried to execute onto Drum, and they lost the exchange with a significant margin.
This time, though, the Gladiators have made progress a little quicker than they were able to last time. Since it's the same defense that they've seen before, they've made their way into the building much quicker. They've set a much faster time, 1:30 left, and Rix is already getting his way into Geisha instead, identifying that he needs to start working this control a little bit earlier if they want to take it to this Direwolves defense. It can't be so linear. There needs to be other avenues to get into the building, otherwise you're just going to face a shield and 3 ADSs.
Oh, Jackie Wu takes down Hoven with a grenade out. That is going to be a spanner in the works for Gladiators, especially when Souffle piles on for another kill. You said, Mandy, the Gladiators were looking good, and Direwolves took fate into their own hands.
Or Souffle just finding a little bit of unfortunate timing. They're trying to whip out one of the Wilmai magnets as Arpe looks for his peak. Now the Gaming Gladiators on the man disadvantage, and the Direwolves looking pretty comfortable here on this anchor as long as they don't give away any more of their lives. 45 seconds left to go, and the Gladiators will have to try and find some hero play if they want to make it into the bomb site.
Could be dictated by Arpe on these back stairs here. Who is that playing on the stairs? Is it Harambe? There he is. No gas canisters, but SMG-11 in hand and listening for the sound cue. May well have heard the adrenal surge and indeed pops up at the exact correct moment. All on Tolji from the 1 versus 5. He can only find a single kill, and Direwolves finally get back in the game.
And once again, this defense that they play out just to be so successful in the way that they play it, not only is it a sort of conservative defense where they're playing all of their utility in one spot, but they're also being very disciplined about it. ED, although he did try and contest a few drones, he tried to shoot out some of those, I guess, players trying to jump in through the window. He didn't overstay his welcome. He knew, okay, this is not where my utility is, this is not where the defense is focused around, so I should just fall off and come back to my teammates. And the Direwolves, by not giving away their life, playing exactly where the utility is, we saw Jackie would get so much value out of that drum shield that, although got taken down, he was able to find 2 picks out of. And so the Direwolves, though, I'm curious to see if they can repeat that kind of success on these other 2 bomb sites, because if you're only going to win out 1 bomb site, 2 rounds is all that you're going to get.
I feel like we're pretty well convinced, you know. Direwolves are pretty good at karaoke and tea. What else have they got, though? They've failed at 2 other sites. They need to start showing that they have some... they have a valid defense, to be frank, on this bomb site here in Exhibition Office. If anything, it feels like their Kitchen Barbecue bomb site was actually a better round. So I'm a little concerned here for Direwolves.
5 seconds left.
Yeah, as am I. It feels like they've been a little better at defending the west side of the map in comparison to the east side of the map as well. That Exhibition Office hold was good in the early game. That roam was fantastic. They found the early pick and fell off it. But it didn't feel like they were as disciplined or playing off the utility like they did once they fell off here into Dragon. There was no one supporting Harambe, for example, when he was sitting behind the statue. And it just felt like that Direwolves discipline that we've seen in the past couple rounds kind of dwindles on this particular strategy. Now for the Gladiators, they will be repeating the same type of attack. They've all spawned on this side of the map, bar Rix, who's just starting to make his way over now to try and sweep through the map and clear these Gladiators roamers.
Direwolves very aware of his position. Souffle trying to retain as much map control as possible. A lot of barricades placed here on this side of the map. Lovely vertical nade as well in from Kitchen. But the run out from Pika is perfect. That is Thermite gone.
And wow, what a pivotal player as well to take down the Thermite of all things. That is, first of all, your entryway gone. That exothermic charge, I don't believe, got detonated by Rix as well. And so Gladiators will have a harder time trying to hop into the building here, as there's only really one way to get into Geisha through that double window. What a pivotal player to take down even in that mid-round, using those exothermic charges on the wall to try and open up into the site. That is just such a huge pick from Pecan.
Not a lot of info now for Gladiators. Some late droning goes out. In fact, there is still a defender inside of Geisha. Souffle. This slippery Wamai has managed to sneak his way back in, retake, and find a kill onto Hoven. Now Direwolves are once again in the advantageous position, and Arpe is going to have to step up to get Gladiators back into the round.
And how perfectly played was that from Souffle, right? I mean, they knew that the thermite went down. How else are they going to get into Geisha? That wall is staying closed. And so Souffle goes, okay, I'll take that free real estate, plays off it, and is eventually able to find another pick out. Now the Gaming Gladiators once again in the man disadvantage. But Dev, time and time again, we have seen Direwolves give it up here. We have seen them get shaky through this mid-round and give away some of these free picks. Now 40 seconds left of the round. Pican has just gone down as well. Dev, they're making the same mistakes again.
Souffle's been misdrone. No, but the flip from Tolji! Thank goodness for Direwolves that was traded, but that may well be a devastating mistake that could stab them right in the back. It's up to Gladiators to send it through. Joe survives the encounter, gets ED traded back. Arpe in the 1 versus 3, make it a 1-on-2, but he will not survive. Direwolves, they made it very, very scary, but they finally pulled through on that site.
Scary was exactly the word that I was thinking of as we went through and watched that execute unfold and pan out. I mean, that was a little bit dicey. Once Pecan went down, I was starting to think, oh no, oh no. And then Souffle got swung on. Thankfully, it was traded out. Oh my goodness. But the Direwolves, wow, how dicey was that for what should have been a much more decisive end round, right? With the man deficit. It just goes to show that the Gladiators, although they're down players, although they're down map control, they still don't give it up and they're still so relentless making those entries. Arpe is such a pivotal part of them as well, really enabling his team even when the rounds aren't really going out their way. Now we go into round 6. Final round of the half. Direwolves, can they make it a 4-2 half like we might expect here on Skyscraper?
That would be a big shot at redemption for Direwolves because, frankly, going down 2-1, it's not a huge scoreline, but when they try a rotation of 3 different bomb sites and only win one of them, it spells concern because if the pattern continues, it ends up at 2-4 against you. You only have success winning that single bomb site. They broke through on Office and Exhibition. Now let's see if they can do the same on Kitchen.
And this will be a reattempt as well. Souffle, I'm not sure if we've seen this in the previous round, but we'll now bring out the mirror. Something that I didn't note before. I think substituted from the castle, if I'm not wrong here. This will changes up their strategy quite a lot. We can see Souffle already making big long lines of sight throughout the entire top floor. I'm curious as to where these mirrors will go. He's put down one already. I didn't quite see where that went down exactly. Maybe we can get Sky to find it. And there it is. Oh, what an interesting spot to put down the mirror. I wonder what this is for.
Is it visible from the external window is my question, because if Gladiators have a way to safely just ash that from outside, I think it is. There you go.
But it's on a reinforced wall.
Oh, sorry, I thought it was unreinforced.
Baited.
I got baited. I'll just leave you to analyze it, right? I'm not gonna touch that.
Well, now the second mirror is going out on the top floor instead, and it's actually facing the drum hallway, which is just, well, I think, I'm not going to say too much. I just want to see how this one pans out because this is something that we haven't seen before. Even this breach here going into the tea room is fully closed off. This is where Harambe is playing right now. There's no long line of sight or anything like that. This wall is fully closed out, and so what a strange defense coming up from the Direwolves. It's like they're trying to get the Gladiators to funnel through these hallways on the top floor, and I want to see if it plays out for them.
It sounds like you're reserving judgment, Mandy. It
I
sounds
am.
like there's a bit of cynicism from you, I detect, perhaps.
Perhaps.
But Direwolves are going to have to prove you wrong. Look at that beautiful long angle all the way onto the Geisha double. But already, Gladiators are pushed up into drum and onto the mezzanine.
Arame now will try to take the engagement onto any players coming to mezzanine. That drone will go down. Oh no, but Tolji backstabs him. He just looks away at the wrong time. And now the back of that mirror is exposed for Souffle. He has to worry about this push coming from mezzanine.
Can't play your mirror window when you've also got to watch your back. That is such an impactful kill. And Gladiators don't overextend. Tolji doesn't send it on through and enable a trade. Direwolves now, man disadvantage as they try to hold on, but they've got a lot of ground they're trying to clutch to and no opportunity to fall back.
And well, the Gladiators, I'm curious as to what their approach is going to be at this point in the round. We still have a player left on the top floor holding onto mezzanine, seeing as Souffle is going to get sort of aggressive, maybe get overzealous, while the rest of the Gladiators players try and work other avenues. We still have control going on in Geisha. Arpe is actually able to find an in somewhere through the map. I wonder where that was.
I think Pika was outside, in fact. And Souffle almost wins his duel with Tolji. A grim moment now for Direwolves, and Souffle knows he has to make a play, but what a flick from the best player in the league. It does not amount to anything as Gaming Gladiators just style on their opponent. What a triple kill from Hoven to close it out. All caught in the kill cam, and that is an even half.
And on top of that, the Gladiators actually deciding to take their tactical time out going into the defense half. I mean, what an incredible attack from the Gladiators. We were confused about that defense from the top down, but the Gladiators clearly were not. Hoven found an in. He realized, okay, the Gladiators have played these long lines of sight into Geisha. They're being contested from the mirror, but the mirror plays distracted right now. Now, I can find the timing to walk in, and that's exactly what Hoven did. He was able to open up that Geisha wall and actually use those angles going into the hallway against the Direwolves and able to find 3 picks, dropping 1 through the hatch to clean up the round for the Gladiators. Just perfectly picked out from Hoven. I mean, we can identify that even in the top down, let alone in the server. That was just some amazing individualistic play from him.
You see that opportunity, you take it. It takes a great player to do that. We may well get it in the replay here.
Here it is.
Yeah, 1, 2, and then pistol. Just so
3.
much confidence. There's even a yellow ping on the final player. Hoven is not a player that we talk about a lot, but that's a highlight reel moment.
Yeah, for sure. And the Gladiators showing that although faced with a pretty unique challenge, they're still able to dissect the map. And I think it just goes to show the experience and the maturity on this map. Although we are giving so much praise to Direwolves and the uniqueness of the strat book, in the end, simply knowing the map and how to break it down and those active problem-solving skills is something that the Gladiators have been really good at in this current matchup. Now they go onto their defense half, and I'm sure that we're going to see something very, very different from their strat book.
It feels like a pretty aggressive lineup. Am I going crazy? You got 2 shields, you've got all these 1.5s. Like, everyone in this lineup has a 1.5 except for the Melusi. I feel like Gaming Gladiators are looking to get aggressive, take some long-range fights.
And I think that the setup also reflects that immediately. We can see reinforcements going out on the single VIP breach. We can see long lines of sight going into Exhibition. This is typically where the entry comes in from, through that single window down into Exhibition. Office is being left, though, on the side of the Gladiators. But really, the main point of cutoff is that single housing VIP Rio that we see just on the floor above. That's typically where your attackers will open up that line of sight and try and cut off any players going back into Dragon. So I think you're right, Dev. I think that the Gladiators are looking for something much more aggressive than the Direwolves were.
Direwolves themselves have brought something left the field. They've got this Montaigne. And it makes me wonder, with no smoke, no lesion, all you've got is the Melusi and arguably Joe's 2 impacts to try and pressure that Montaigne. If Joe can retain those impacts into the late round, that would be huge. They'd have something to deal with the Monty. They've now spotted him out on a camera, but they don't have the smoke, so they're going to have to lean into what they do have to deal with him.
Now we can see the Direwolves starting to make their way through the ground floor of the map. An entry that we don't normally see. Typically we see players trying to hop in through the single window in Exhibition, trying to open up that wall, but the Direwolves taking a very unique approach as they approach the defense of the Gaming Gladiators. Now we can also see Pecan playing the cutoff here on the Dragon single window as well, trying to contest out the position of Tolji. Tolji now realizing, okay, I'm about to be caught in a crossfire, let's just fall back and play the utility that we have.
Summer's gone out, Monty there for information, but I mean, is Jackie really achieving a lot right now? Here's Ape. Mandy, do you remember that game? Gladiators versus Fury.
Deja vu.
Yeah, I'm starting to get a little bit of deja vu. That man is keen for a flank.
And the Direwolves, it seems like they're trying to pivot and try and do something else instead. They've gone, okay, we're not going to sweep the map. All of the Direwolves players are now forfeiting the east side of the map and fully pivoting over to the west side. We can see 2 players, aside from 1, I suppose, looking for a lurk. Is that ED on the Nook looking for a lurk? While the rest of their players shape up to look for that execute onto the east side of the map. Hallway control will now go out for Jackie Wu as well as he pushes that Monty in, one of his teammates to follow.
No smoke, no rotate in karaoke, and no real method of slowing down or stopping this Montaigne. Ape does have an opportunity to flank, and Joe still has his 2 impacts, but what are the chances here for Gladiators to hold on? Direwolves have to be ultra cautious of that flank. Tolji's been taken out, that's a big player, and both impacts are down. Apes found 1, traded back, 3 on 3 now, but Harambe has the line. ED on his lurk, gets the backstab that he was looking for. This is a very elongated fight, back and forth, and now into the 1v2 for Pika. LMG in hand with 15 seconds to go. Rix, a single bullet would mean his demise, but Pika is in a disadvantage. Walks straight past the diffuser, has to face check all the angles, and Hoven is there ready and waiting. Gladiators hold on.
What a difficult hold that was for the Gladiators as well. They fought tooth and nail to hold on to the map control that they did. The Direwolves pushing relentlessly with that Monty through the hallway, trying to get control eventually into Karaoke. But as you might have alluded to a little bit earlier in the round, actually, Dev, Hoven using those impact grenades late in the round on those two walls in the hallway gave him a big long line of sight that he was able to contest the push of the Direwolves. And of course you kind of mount for that as you're joining it in, right? Because that's not quite there yet. Hoven just made that on the fly. And so the Direwolves, I felt like the indecisiveness of that push eventually came to their demise. They started with a map clear, they transitioned over, but were not able to translate it into a round win because the Direwolves had set up such great, because the GAIMIN Gladiators had set up such great crossfires that they hadn't anticipated going into it.
Makes you wonder whether we'll see the Muncie again after such a distinct failure from Direwolves. Gladiators, they're not screwing around. They know what they're doing, and even when throwing a curveball, even when arguably they don't have the most suitable operators for the job, they don't give up. They know how to adapt a plan as well.
And I think what they've done there, actually, just on that wall on the geisha, sorry Sky, I'm going to borrow you for a minute, is I think that they've shotgunned out the other side of the wall, so a thermite charge cannot be placed on this wall, and therefore they cannot make a free entryway going into drum. I mean, the Gladiators, Dev, they just thought of everything.
Does that actually work? Like, if you thermite the hard or right side of geisha, does that breach the drum wall?
That's what Rix was doing when he was playing thermite.
So they're not only are they innovating with their own strategies, they are countering their own strategies.
Wow, I mean, the Gladiators, what an interesting approach. Not only that, Dev, but they've actually left open half of the breach going to the office wall as well. And just, oh wow, this is just such a strange strategy coming out for them. Maybe they're looking to impact trick it or something like that. But anyway, now GAIMIN Gladiators looking for this. There it is. Yeah, this wall. It's only half open with footsie holes. I wonder what they're going to do with that. Anyway, now the Direwolves starting to make their way once again into the ground floor. We saw them try this entry in the previous round, but it didn't amount to much. This time the bomb site is on this side of the map though, so I imagine that they can translate this into something a little more successful.
I can just see the cogs whirring in your brain right now, Mandy, as you're trying to understand the Gladiator strategy.
I do not understand.
They've been doing the hard yards. They've been doing their homework. They've got some really interesting and peculiar strats. And Direwolves aren't bringing them onto, not to say Gladiators wouldn't be ready for it. Lesion, smoke, impacts on the Wamai. It feels like Gladiators always have an answer.
It absolutely does, but a moment of quiet here now in this round as neither team has come to much engagement. No one is trying to make any big fights or anything going on. They're on completely two different separate floors. The Direwolves still making their way on the ground floor, trying to suss out this defense of the Gladiators, see which walls that they can get open easily, because I think they just encountered the strange breach going to office and they're not really sure what they want to do about it yet.
So what is the play from Direwolves? Doesn't seem to be a direct push. Heavy pressure downstairs below. A vertical nade doesn't find anything. This is going to be very, very difficult for Direwolves to try and find all the picks. Abe, what an angle! On the angle outside, he takes down Jackie Wu. Fortunately for Direwolves, they can even the odds, taking down Hoven and another one to boot. Gladiators, this might be a peculiar strategy, but now they're feeling under pressure.
And now Harambe will start to get this wall open. No impact trick to come through from that little footsie hole that the Gladiators were able to make. So that thermite charge does go off. And finally, the Direwolves are starting to make their in onto the top floor. 30 seconds left to go, though. They will have to mount some kind of execute as Rix is all out of smoke babes.
But you know what he does have? The trusty shotgun, and he is ready for a fight. The flash, though, obscures his vision. Joe gets flicked on. It's all under told you. We've seen him step up big, but it is not going to happen again. Direwolves managed to convert a 4 versus 0 and storm on through with their first attack round win.
And what a peculiar round that was as well. I mean, there were fights being taken all across the map. We saw Ape look for his peek through the window as the Direwolves tried to go for dragon control. Simultaneously, Harambe was getting the main breach open. It just felt like the Direwolves, although they didn't know exactly what the win condition was, they knew that they had certain parts of the map that they were able to work on and try and amount towards a win. Eventually, by having that breach open and by finding some of those picks from the ground floor, they were able to eventually win out the round. And I think for the Direwolves, that also goes to show that they have the flexibility that the Gladiators showed when they were playing their attacking half, right? When the Gladiators did this, they were able to find ins and do some problem solving, especially on these top floor sites that we didn't really expect coming from them, and we couldn't even figure out in the top down. The same thing from these Direwolves as well. It didn't look like there was an in, but once those picks started to flurry through, it all fell together for the Direwolves.
It feels like what we're watching, two really, really good teams, very evenly matched. Both who have come in with so many new and innovative strategies for Skyscraper, but also, when shit hits the fan, they are not afraid of just sending it. They know how to play around a disadvantage. They know how to play it when it's messy. They are unafraid of anything the opposition has to throw at them.
And what is going on here? Is this a run out? Or is this
What are
a
you
score
doing,
peak?
Owen?
Or what's
Oh my
happening?
god!
What on earth?
Cop that L, mate. Sorry. Cop that L.
Caught in 4K.
Oh, but
Oh
they
my
traded back.
gosh.
Arpe unafraid of just doubling down on every disadvantage that they might have. Welcome to the Gladiators.
Yeah, and the wall gets reinforced as well. So now, once again, we have the half wall open. Only one side is closed up. And already the round is off to the strangest start. I think this is the strangest game of Skyscraper we've casted thus far, Dev. I feel like we've casted a lot of Skyscraper in the past few weeks, but this is by far and away the strangest one.
And I am absolutely all for it, Mandy. It has been a wild ride. And so far it's left us at a 4 versus 4, at 4-4 on the scoreline. Either team could run away with it. Both teams need this win oh so desperately for a shot at the major. A regulation loss for either team puts them down to 10% or less of a chance of making it to that major, whereas a win is close to 50% chance, very likely that one of these mid-pack teams could rocket forward and go to Berlin.
And now once again the Direwolves making their way through the ground floor. Souffle jumping in, trying to make use of some of those vertical nades, is able to clear out some bit of utility from below. We didn't quite see what it was as Jackie Wu starts to make his way up the main stairs. Once again the Direwolves' focus seems to be directly on the site. They're giving up, trying to clear the rest of it, trying to go for a direct take, making use of the vertical as Jackie Wu is able to find a kill through that vertical onto a player inside of Dragon.
The Direwolves looking red hot now on their attack. They've won this bomb site before, and they're ready to do so again. Still vertical nades in abundance for Souffle. He's got 2 in pocket, looking to toss one up into bar as Jackie Wu wants to make a play up the stairs here. Nobody is watching. He times it perfectly with ED, who finds the pick onto Ape. The star fragger from GG is down, and it is all on the Tolji. What a flick! How many 90-degree flicks are we going to see this game? Souffle is not having it.
The Direwolves once again finding an in onto the exhibition office site. Gladiators twice now unsuccessfully defending this site, this unique strategy they've gone for, not throwing off the Direwolves. The Direwolves play out the problem-solving game perfectly, finding an in, taking the 1v1s and catching Gladiators players off where there's no play to support them, where there's no other teammate to trade them. And the Direwolves fully capitalizing on the fact that they can play the numbers in the late game and eventually win out the round. Now the Gladiators, having failed it twice, will go back down into Kitchen and into Barbecue instead. And honestly, I feel like this is the right move. That last strat that they were playing was not working out for them.
Yeah, but they also could go T-Room Karaoke, which they've won before. Why are they not going back to the bomb site that's tried and true and tested? Why are they taking a risk here on the tertiary site? But they had such little confidence in this objective that they went back to Exhibition Office after losing it. What makes them not want to go back to T-Room Karaoke now?
10 seconds left.
I have no idea. Maybe they're bringing something out of the hat that we haven't seen before. That's a lot of drones being killed. Oh no. I think we've lost
Only
something.
2 drones
What's
left.
going on?
Attackers
Oh
are
no,
moving
Oh,
out.
no.
please don't tell me this is a
Oh,
visual
no.
bug.
Oh no.
Oh,
We're back! Well done, Sky.
That is the That's got to be the biggest heart attack you would have as an observer, right?
Yeah, I think so too. I was having a heart attack for Sky, to be honest. Well done.
Every player you switch to is just a destroyed drone.
You know what? Thankfully, it works out for us on the desk anyway, on the cast. The Direwolves now will have to attack their way into Kitchen and Barbecue 1, which we're questioning as to why the Gladiators have gone there. Now looking for a map sweep, it seems like, as all the Direwolves players shaping up on the east side, where the bomb site's on the west side. Some roamers as well on the top floor will mean that the Direwolves will be faced with some challenge trying to take some gunfights here and try and contest the vertical.
Souffle has been a very strong and consistent player for Direwolves, but I gotta say, on both teams, it feels very well-rounded. The only outliers being that Gaming Gladiators have Rix and Joe both only on a single kill. Now, obviously, you don't want to read too much into kills alone, but it just feels like Direwolves, any player steps up and you believe that they can get those multi-kills, take those fights. And unfortunately, we're just not quite seeing the same level of consistency across the board from the Gladiators camp at the moment.
Now a bit of quiet once again as the Direwolves try and figure out exactly what they want to do. They've made progress through one half of the map. Harambe has opened up the Geisha wall, and so the pinch through this top floor is amounting. Whoa, brave peek though. Jackie Wu pushing straight into drum. There's still player and Shrine. These Direwolves players are so brave. They're just going for it.
Yeah, but of course, it doesn't always work in your favor. Bravery to one person is stupidity to another, but Direwolves do not let up. Souffle might have gone down, but they traded. They brute forced their way in there. No drones, no nothing. Send it on through. They have the confidence. They can play off of it.
And now the Direwolves with the top floor control. Unfortunately, no vertical on their side, aside from 2 breaching charges from Khan. Will be able to amount for some vertical for the Direwolves as they start to convert the rest of this mid-round, possibly to a round win, see what control that they can get. Edie will start to drone out the bomb site as well, as Jackie will make his way down the stairs. There's still an entire other floor left to go, as Bikan will get to work on the floor.
Upper is such a deadly player. He's been a standout with the way that he looks for these aggressive opportunities. Rix, though, oh, there you go. Said his name. Eventually, Arpe does get one. Joe gets back on the scoreboard. And just like that, it's a GR for GG. Gladiators easily mop up, and they say, look, Dev, that is why we went to Kitchen.
And that is absolutely fair enough from the Gladiators. I feel like we didn't quite get to see as much of how that attack unfolded eventually for the Direwolves. It felt like they had a grip on that top floor, but with only 40 seconds left to go, it meant that they couldn't quite convert through that mid-round to eventually amount to an execute. Some of the vertical did come out from the breach charges that didn't really find anything on the side of Pecan, and Ape was able to hold on to that horizontal control. Like you said, say his name and he shall appear, as he finds any of those Direwolves players trying to rotate down onto the ground floor and trying to hit the site. So I think the Gladiators, although they did lose out the picks on that top floor, Harambe making an excellent entry, they were still able to just sit tight, realize that the Direwolves are running out of time, and let them run into their lines of sight and eventually win out the round. So the Gladiators showing us why they took us to that site. That is a multi-step attack as well. And the Direwolves taking their tactical timeout in the 5 versus 5. I think this is about the right time to take it.
I mean, this is, I love to call it break point. In the next round, someone is going to get match point, and because of the format, in the best of 1 round robin, someone is going to get a point on the scoreboard, which means the other team is going to lose a point on the scoreboard. Both teams have the potential for a regulation win here, the full 3 points, which realistically they firmly need for a shot at the major. I've got the percentages here. Regulation win for Direwolves, 51% chance of making the major. Only an overtime win drops that by 15%. Very similar story for Gaming Gladiators, 47% if they win in regulation, only 30% of making the major if they win in overtime, let alone a loss for either of these teams, which basically dashes their hopes completely. These are guys in the mid-pack, you can see it, 3rd and 5th place. You've got IG, you've got Knights, you even got Wildcard to worry about, not to mention Elevate, who's pretty comfortably in 1st at the moment. These guys are fighting each other right now in the server for a shot at going to Berlin.
Now the Gaming Gladiators will take us back to Tea Room and Karaoke once again. Side that they've won out beforehand, we're pretty confident in this one for them to be able to win it out once again. Last time the Direwolves tried to attack this, it was scrappy. They started out with a map clear and they changed their mind, tried to pivot their way to a more direct attack instead. They ran out of time, the Gladiators won. We'll see if the Direwolves can learn from their mistakes this time and actually commit to one push, putting all their players on that same page, on the same idea, and going for it. Jackie Wu will now try and clear out some of that anti-hard breach from below onto the single VIP wall successfully, hopefully, with the Gone 6. Souffle will now start to make his way in through the office wall as well. And the Direwolves seeming like they're going to commit to this roam clear this time.
Not many roamers to deal with, but Tolji is the first line of defense. The Gladiators. He's playing at Shrine at the moment, waiting for the drones to come through. But as we've seen, Direwolves are not afraid of just sending it, even if they haven't thoroughly droned an area. They use their game sense, they pre-aim, they refrag. Joe's now supporting Tolji as Tolji falls back. He's actually going to play this power position, either him or Joe will. And Harvin playing the 90-degree angle in drum as well.
Once again, we can see the Gladiators holding onto this power position, pretty similar to how the Direwolves did, actually, holding onto this mezzanine position. The only difference is the Gladiators actually have half of the exhibition wall open as well, and so even if they need to fall back into the site, there's still a long line of sight that they can play to contest this roam clear, and the Direwolves will start to have to get a move on. They're currently pretty stagnated right now, trying to make their way into drum. Hoven taken very low. Jackie Wu can heal himself back up, but right now the Direwolves seeming pretty stagnated on this push.
Need some util to clear out this position. That's what Direwolves have been lacking, but regardless of that, Gladiators fall back. This is a tea room karaoke defense, so Gladiators can't feasibly fall back far more at all before they are simply leaving the bomb site to the hopes of the opposition.
And Jackie Wu will now make his way into drum, but only 50 seconds remain for the side of the Direwolves. They'll have to get this wall open soon and try and mount a comeback. Samus will go on the wall as well, trying to make an in into the bomb site too, as Hoven will find the first pick of this round.
Harambe goes down, but Jackie Wu close behind! Hoven good for a second! Direwolves on for the trades, but Ape finally, his patience is rewarded as he waited downstairs. Pika's gonna have to rappel in. That is an audio cue for him to be swung. And now Souffle is alone. Dropped downstairs in a 1 versus 3. Ape's got no clue. And Souffle might find the kill because of it. Sees the angle almost flicked on, but he does get it. Less than 10 seconds, we are into red time. 2 nades in pocket, but no chance of using them, no opportunity. And GAIMIN Gladiators get the point on the board. They go to match point.
6 points up for the Gladiators against the Direwolves of all opponents. This is an incredibly strong and pivotal round from them. My goodness, they have been playing absolutely out of their minds in this Skyscraper matchup. The Direwolves once again pushing through that mid-round, stagnating. Not able to get that wall open in time, and Ape, like you said, the patience was rewarded on him, holding out on that mezzanine position for so long, eventually finding the flank through the main stairs, and wow, how well played the Gladiators have been in this particular matchup. This is just some incredible Skyscraper that we're seeing from both teams.
And how much can a stage really do to a team? It seems like a lot. In stage 1, Direwolves were the undisputed top of APAC South, 21 points on the board. They were untouchable. They dismissed the then Renatus, now Gladiators roster in a comfortable 7-3, and now they are fighting for survival, to stay alive, to keep their heads above the water, and get top 2, make it back to a major. It's not looking likely. Gladiators are starting to overshadow them. After only being in this league for 6 months, this Indonesian team has shown the rest of APAC what you can be capable of if you put your mind to it. If you go through, you do the hard yakka, put in the hard yards, and stick it through as a team.
And the Gladiators have definitely been putting in the hard work on this map. I mean, even for the defenses that they haven't quite won out, we can see just how diverse and how fleshed out this strat has become. And just how confident they are in their problem-solving skills, the way that they use the architecture of the map, the way that they prevent Direwolves from using some of the architecture of the map, opening up things that the Direwolves might want to try and contest themselves. It's just been so incredible on their part, right? Now they'll take us down to actually mastering bathroom. This is a bomb site that we haven't really seen before, Dev, I believe. I think it hasn't appeared yet.
No.
completely brand new strat, once again showing the Gladiators they have so much in their armory when it comes to strat books. And now they're holding on to this top floor, the Direwolves, they'll have to pick it apart, and it's a problem that they've never seen before.
Breadth and depth of strategy and skill from both of these teams on this map. And for Gladiators to take us to the least picked bomb site by far on Skyscraper, on their match point, it goes to show their level of preparation and confidence, their level of skill. But Direwolves are ready to go blow for blow, and Nate Ondatoji opens up the round.
Ooh, double drone from the Direwolves.
Interesting.
A small miscalculation in the drone economy, and as APAC gets droned out on the ground floor, but Joe to trade one back directly onto Jackie Wu. Another will follow up from Arpe. 2 drones go in, but with no gun up to follow that drone, they will go by the wayside, and Arpe is able to claw one back for the Gladiators.
And Ape is constantly a thorn in the side of Direwolves. He is always prodding and prodding and looking for an opportunity to backstab the opponent. But Direwolves have managed to get into sight. The plant's going down. Hoven has the control above, but he was looking for Vert with the pistol. Caught with his pants down. Joe on 1 HP must pair now with Ape. Can he stick the defuse? He cannot. It is a 1 versus 1 as Joe must 1 HP clutch for the game. Can Pika deny it? You have to run, son! You have to run! The game is over! GG! Have done it! The upset over the once great Direwolves! Welcome to APAC South!
And Joe's just happy to take a sip of water all in a day's work, you know, for the Gladiators, winning out on that 1 versus 1 clutch. The Gladiators able to take down the rising opponents of the Direwolves. What a huge match for them. Not only did they prove us all wrong, we all predicted against them, but they showed it in dominant fashion in every way they could, mechanically, strategically, with problem solving. Every step of the way, the Gladiators were ahead.
To play 4 different bomb sites on one of the newest maps to be introduced into the competitive pool,